So while that slide is being brought up, let me give you a little bit of background. One of the least fun things to do as an entrepreneur is actually write things and describe things in writing, because we know for a lot of engineers, writing things is actually hard. It's more fun to talk about things. But I think one of the challenges basically is that there are some documents you have to prepare in order to communicate with your audiences, okay? So there's 3 important documents with regard to your investors. And those 3 documents are really the executive summary, which we're going to talk about, the investor deck, which Rich talked about yesterday, and the third one, which really don't talk much about, is sort of the business plan. And we'll talk about, you know, how each of those fit in, basically, and really, you know, what kind of attention you want to pay to each of those. So while he's bringing that slide up, basically, let me just say that the executive summary typically is a document that you will write and you will actually send to people to communicate your vision about your idea. It is not something you present to a person in person like the investor deck, basically. And the challenge of the executive summary is really to condense many, many thoughts and ideas you have on a small amount of space. Typically, it's 1 to 2 pages. Is that slide coming up?
We are looking for your presentation.
I'm sorry?
We are looking for your presentation.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is one of the challenges, is to basically take all the all information you have and really get it down to a small amount of information, which is typically 1 or 2 pages. Again, this is something that you present in person, but you would share with person through an email typically. So occasionally you'll run across people that, whatever reason, want to know more about your idea. It might be you meet them at a cocktail party, you get a little dialogue going, and they say, by the way, I've got to run, send me some more information. So the important thing is that it's okay to send them your executive summary, and that's something they can read and they can follow up with you on and say, gee, I really like that, what happens next, kind of thing, as far as what's the next step in me learning more. So the executive summary is something they can actually read on their own, and hopefully it'll be able to be understood, and the next thing they say, you know, I did read your executive summary, it's very intriguing, can you tell me more, can we actually meet in person? At that point in time, you'd actually obviously go to their office and use your investor deck to actually run through the pitch that Rich went over yesterday. So it's sort of a precursor to a much more detailed story about your pitch, which basically would be 10 to 15 slides. So hopefully that slide's coming up. We'll start running through the different pieces of the executive summary. So this is really going to be a challenge, because I think one of the things that I've observed in the last couple of days is, you know, that expressing one's ideas is hard. Getting them into a small number of words is hard. Explaining the problem definition is hard. These are all things that they're just hard. And I think you have to, if you think about it, the more we push on, you know, what it is that you're trying to express, the more you realize how difficult it really is. Like in your particular case, you're talking about freedom, anywhere, anything, anywhere, anytime kind of thing. So I think the challenge basically is to do this writing. How's that slide coming along? There it is. Okay, great. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through the contents of the executive summary. We're going to ask you to write your executive summary between now and Thursday. We're going to ask you to mail your executive summary to Max by Thursday at 9 a.m. And in the afternoon, we're going to have a little workshop. We're going to actually not necessarily walk through each executive summary in detail, but basically, we're going to probably pick a couple of the topics in the executive summary and talk about them. So let's just run through this, okay? So obviously, the title is self-explanatory. I think it's going to be the title of your project, basically. The next thing you want to talk about is the problem. Now, we've talked a lot about the problem definition yesterday and today. So I think now we're going to really ask you to really think deeply about what problem are you solving. Think about some companies that you probably have heard of. Think about Uber. Think about Airbnb. And think about what problem did they solve. And is it really clear? Is it well understood? If you think about it, you say, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. I really get it. Like Uber, what a great idea. Get a taxi anywhere, anytime. Unbelievable. It's so simple, but again, it's elegant, right? You know, we used Uber the other night, and it was amazing. We're in the hotel. Actually, we're in a restaurant. We ordered cab through Uber, and like within 2 minutes, there was a Mercedes in the front door. What a great idea. Really worked well. So I think one of the hardest things for you to do is going to be really to succinctly express the problem. And that's really where you really grab the audience. And I think basically, especially if the audience can identify with the problem set. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm working with some companies back in Mass Challenge that are working on attention deficit, where either their relative, their children had attention deficit issues, and they were addressing this problem. So right away, there's a connection between the audience, the person, the problem, and somebody in their family that had an issue. So right away, there was connectivity, and really grabbed the audience, and the audience wants to listen. So that's this is really going to be a key part of your executive summary, getting that succinctly stated. What is the problem? The next thing, obviously, is you're going to weave into, okay, so this is the problem, and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to solve the problem. And obviously, there's a lot of different ways to solve the problem. So the question mark is going to be, you explain your approach to the problem set. That's going to be sort of the weaving of the story. We just had a great presentation from John about the business model. And obviously, he presented some very complex slides, which were great, but I think your challenge is to present your business model in a very small space here, right? Because you don't have 5 slides to talk about business model. It's going to be very, very carefully articulated, very briefly. Think about, what are the 3 or 4 steps to describe your business model? Now, this is interesting, the secret sauce. We use this expression back in the States, basically, to describe what makes your solution unique. What is it that's unique about yours? Is it a special recipe? Is it a formula? Is it patented? What's secret about it? Because if you don't have any secret sauce, then I could probably copy you tomorrow, right? So what is your secret sauce? That's really the key. So think about, in your particular cases, like, what is your secret sauce? Do you know what your secret sauce is?
Yes, I know.
What is it?
So it's our technology that allows to work in any
Okay.
weather conditions.
Could I
That's
copy
it.
that, though?
Not really.
Is it
digital.
patented?
First, it's somehow patented, and secondly, it's really a result of 15 years of research. So that's not that
50?
15.
Oh, 15 years ago. Okay,
So
all right. So
not-
you got
not
you got an edge, right? Okay, great. That's important. So everybody has to sort of have their own secret sauce. One of the companies I'm mentoring back in Boston has actually produced a Greek iced tea product. Their secret sauce is they have a recipe that was developed by the grandmother, who has since passed away, unfortunately. But basically, we have that secret sauce. They have this formula that nobody knows about that's written away. Coca-Cola, what is their secret sauce? They have a special formula for how they make Coke. It's very highly protected, and nobody knows what it is. It's locked away in a safe someplace, but that's their secret sauce, basically. Some of the other pieces of this executive summary are more predictable and more generic, basically. You need to be able to articulate what is your marketing approach, what is your sales approach. You need to demonstrate good knowledge about your competition. If you cannot explain your competitive landscape, then people don't know how you really are going to really win in the marketplace. And so I think one area that I see a lot of entrepreneurs stumble on is when they get in front of an investor, they get pushed deeply into competition. There might be people in the audience that know a lot more about a particular area than you do. You got to be prepared to answer their questions. So when they say to you, tell me about your competitors, when you hear an entrepreneur say, I have no competitors, that's like the kiss of death. Because it's hardly ever the case you'd have no competitors. So there's always going to be some direct or indirect competition. So make sure you understand your competitors both in your local geography and really internationally if you're planning to go international. That's really important. In some cases, competition is healthy because it's really demonstrating an existing market, and basically it's a market you can tap into what your particular new product solution is. Now, the other thing that you want to sort of talk about, and this is hard, because if you're a startup and you're asked to create financial projections, gee, how do I do that? I haven't even launched my product yet. They're asking me for a 3-year financial projection. They want revenue, they want expenses, they want net profit. This is really hard. How do I do it? The fact of the matter is, for a lot of us, you have to really, I hate to use the word make it up, but you have to sort of create some projections. Because you have knowledge about your business. You got to tell me, what is the product going to cost? How are you going to sell it? What are going to be the sell expenses? What will be your gross profit margin? And how is it going to ramp up? I mean, you got to be able to sort of project that. We know it's really a guesstimate, but you're better than me telling the story. I can't make up the financial projections. So clearly, financial projections are going to be important. The other thing is the key metrics. How do you measure success? For the web companies, it's like they're looking at traffic, they're looking at page views. So what are your key metrics? When I work with the companies back in Mass Challenge, I say to them, okay, think about the 5 most important metrics for your company. Whatever they are, just think about them. Write them down, and every week track them and report upon them. So I want to be able to say week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I want to see what's happening with those metrics. And it's okay to change them if you realize you picked the wrong metrics, but you have to have some metrics. If you're shipping products, it could be revenue. If you're not shipping product, it could be number of sales meetings. But think about what are the key metrics that basically are important for your business. And you can't say, well, I don't have any metrics. Well, that's really not the answer. There are key metrics for each business. It could be a number of different things, but think about in your particular case, what are the key metrics? I think some of these other things basically are pretty predictable. How big is your current team? What have you accomplished to date, basically? And one point in the team, one question I see very often asked is, who is the next person you're going to hire? Who is the next most important you're going to hire? In other words, are you thinking about the team makeup? Are you thinking about where the shortfalls are? Are you thinking about who is the next best hire that you have to basically put in place? And if you can't answer that question, that means you're not really thinking about your business. You're not thinking about how to bring the business forward. Other key issues, obviously, are the timeline. I like to see a roadmap. Oftentimes we think about technology roadmaps. I want to see sort of a company roadmap. Show me a picture that goes left to right, months, years, and show me the key activities and how they become integrated. How marketing has a particular role, how sales has a role, how the technology team has a role. And the other common question, obviously, okay, you're trying to raise $1 million. How are you going to use the money? I mean, you can't say, well, not sure, we'll figure it out. You have to have a detailed plan that says, we're going to hire 3 engineers, we're going to hire 3 marketing people, we're going to hire 3 salespeople, we're going to open up these 3 new geographies, we're going to establish a channel, whatever the answer is for you. Again, I think that the question might becomes to exhibit deep thinking about your company, that you've done your homework and you're prepared to articulate the story, okay? Now, this outline is just one outline, and there's a lot of different types of outlines of executive summaries. I think this is pretty common. And this actually came out of a book written by Kawasaki, who's a very popular evangelist for entrepreneurs back home. And if you like to read books about entrepreneurs, I would recommend his book. Actually, it's sort of at the bottom. It's a very good book. It talks about the intricacies of getting a startup off the ground. And I think, obviously, right now, globally, entrepreneurship has really become very popular. There are many great books out there. Steve Blank's got a lot of great books out there. And I think this is actually a pretty good book. I really recommend it. So I think that this is going to be a challenging assignment because from what I've seen, writing things down, expressing things is hard for us. It really is. I mean, it's just hard. I'm an engineer, and it's funny, when I managed a lot of engineers, they could not write. They couldn't write a sentence. It wasn't legible. There were spelling errors. There was all kinds of things. And, it was painful because, I didn't want to be in the wordsmithing business. I didn't really want to spend my time writing sentences, you know what I mean? But ultimately, we have to be able to communicate. So I think this is going to be challenging, but I think it's going to be a good exercise. What we'll do on Thursday is we'll have the teams present the executive summaries. We'll probably pick a couple of topics out of the executive summaries and home in on those and talk about those. I'm not going to tell you which ones they're going to be because I don't want to give away the thing we're going to be doing on Thursday. But I think you can think about which of these are the hardest for you to do. We probably will be picking on those, okay? So again, by 9 o'clock on Thursday, if you can send your your executive summary to Max, we'll have some fun on Thursday. Now, I'd like to open it up for questions. Any questions? Now, don't forget, this is one piece of a documentation package. We haven't heard much about business plans. I think John mentioned it on day one. I think he had written a business plan for Mass Challenge. But you don't hear about business plans. But typically what happens is executive summary gets sent to somebody. They say, I love it, investor deck, you go and do it in person. They say, oh, I love this. I'm ready to make an investment, but you know what? I like to read your business plan. That is that really long document that has all the details of the entire business. What are you going to do for the next 5 years? And most people don't have business plans, to be honest. But you always get asked that question. So I think, I'm not sure how come they are here. Back home, I think in the old days, I think investors use it as a vehicle to stop entrepreneurs. They would say, send me your business plan. Most entrepreneurs say, oh my God, I don't have one. I don't want to write a 50-page document. Sort of the conversation ended right there. It was sort of a way to stop the conversation. But I think nowadays, they're less popular, but don't be surprised if you get asked for one. Then you have to sort of scurry to create one. And I think, I would try to figure out a way to avoid that, honestly. It's a very painful experience. So questions from the audience? Yes?
Alec, you've mentioned so many things here, because in my mind, I'm laying out all of this together. It's like 5-page document, which is not an executive summary.
But this is
You talked about
this
the
is-
size of the document.
no, this is a
How
challenge.
should you be?
This is really doable. It's 1 to 2 pages. Otherwise, it's not this, basically. So I know it's hard. But basically, think about this. If you had to describe your secret sauce in 1 sentence, can you do it?
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to describe the problem in 1 sentence, can you do it?
I mean, of course, it's just
Right.
so many things.
So this is what makes it hard. If I said to you, describe to me the most fun thing you ever did in your life, unlimited length, how long would it be, right? But if I said to you, you've got to contain it in 1 page, this is part of the task of minimizing and choosing your words carefully and be able to articulate. It's hard. This is part of the challenge, but it is totally doable, 1 to 2 pages. Back there?
Well, my question actually is on the previous one. Maybe you can provide some sort of template, recommendations, like on Twitter, you cannot post more than 140 symbols similar with the executive summary. You got to describe the problem in under 100 symbols, something like that. Can you provide that?
Yeah, actually, I don't want to categorize each area by a particular length, but I would say this. We need to discuss it. You can actually use images. Okay, images are okay. So, for instance, financial projections, you can just have 3 lines of an Excel spreadsheet. That's a financial projection. Revenue, expenses, net profit. That's it. You can have other images in here relevant to graphs, for instance, like customer growth. So I would say a textual-only executive summary isn't as attractive as something that has some graphs and images in it from the point of view, using that 1 or 2 pages, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So I would say consider in some of these areas, is there a place where you can actually use a picture or a graph and not really use much text? And that really counts. So I don't categorize it by length in any particular area.
My understanding that executive summary is a document, a printout that a person should read.
Exactly.
So probably there are some recommendations as far as like the font size, like the minimum font size, the layout of the blocks to make it more readable and attractive.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say, it's a good point. I really didn't address the font size, but I would say if you look at a traditional printed document that you can comfortably read, what is that? Is that a 12 font? I would say, so it's going to be something that, don't print something that you're cheating is like an 8 font and I can't read it. It's going to be,
That's tempting.
yeah, so basically it's going to be something, well, this is,
11 or 12.
yeah, 11 and 12. This is comfortable, right? This is actually kind of large, but, think about what can you read comfortably, whatever that font is. Is it a 12 font? But, I didn't want to tie down to font sizes, I think, but don't make it something that I have to use a magnifying glass to read. Obviously, that would be unattractive, right? But those are good questions. The other thing I would say this, I'll try to go onto the web and find some really good examples of executive summaries and send them around, because I think there are some great examples. And I think what I have found is I do a lot of judging, basically. I do a lot of reading. I find people really have a hard time getting it down to 1 or 2 pages. It comes in, it's 5 or 10 pages. We work on it. Eventually, we throw away a lot of the text, we put graphs and images in, and then it gets to be looking really attractive. And then the thing is, all the things you do here are going to benefit your investor deck, right? Because a lot of these things have got to eventually be converted into a PowerPoint. So if you can't do this, you're going to have a hard time with that next stage. You follow my point? So this is all tied together. So this and the investor deck are probably the two best things you're going to do. The business plan, not so much. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm not sure, are executive summaries used locally? Do you guys use them locally or not so much?
We do.
Oh, you do?
Teasers.
I'm sorry?
We call them teasers
Teasers, okay, right, yeah.
in scope.
Okay. Is it similar content?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. So these are very popular back home, and again, it's the vehicle where they're gonna read it, you're not gonna be there, and it's sort of, they gotta wanna, like John said, they gotta, you have to sort of make that note that I wanna go to the next step, as opposed to I read the first 2 or 3 lines and I say, okay, I'm not interested any further. Other questions? All right, so everybody knows what the homework assignment is. 9 o'clock on Thursday, send it to Max. We'll have some fun on Thursday to go over these. We'll probably pick a couple of items out of here. And I think, you know, I will challenge all the teams to really focus on the problem and the secret sauce, because those are the things that really separate you from the pack. It's really going to basically demonstrate that you really have thought deep and hard about what you're doing, what your passion is, okay? Any other questions? Oh, oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is Max's email address. Thanks. Thanks. That was great. All right. So any other questions? I think, is everybody ready for lunch? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.